Pages 22 to 27 from A Promises to Keep, Jackie Robinson, How He Changed America. This section is called 1945, A Changing World. After the Army, Dad worked for a year as a coach at Huston-Tillotson College in Austin, Texas. He then played baseball in the Negro Leagues for one season, 1945. That was the only league open to an African-American ballplayer at the time. Between 1888 and 1947, black ballplayers were restricted to the Negro Leagues. The Negro Leaguers played a unique and exciting style of baseball that entertained millions in small towns and big cities across America. Negro League teams gave us great players such as Satchel Paige, Josh Gibson, Willie Mays, and Henry "Hank" Aaron. Despite the glory associated with the Negro League baseball, it was still a part of a discriminatory system. Major League Baseball had an unwritten policy that kept non-white players out of organized baseball. Black ball players were denied the opportunity to play in the major leagues. Salaries were lower in the Negro Leagues, the schedules were less structured, and when the teams traveled south, they were forced to follow Jim Crow laws. Because of its iniquities, Dad questioned his future in professional baseball. Although my dad knew that the black press, some liberal sports writers, and a few politicians were fighting for an end to Jim Crow baseball, he had little faith that it would happen in his lifetime. Little did Dad know that change was close, or that he was the prime candidate to break down the racial barrier. Page 23. The end of World War II signaled a turning point in America in many ways. Segregation was one area that was certain to change. The black veterans returning from World War II were more determined than ever to abolish segregation. In 1948, President Harry S. Truman announced an end to segregation in the U.S. military. Other people were just as interested in desegregating civilian life. Some of them started with sports. Because of its significance to American culture, baseball was the first team sport targeted for change. American baseball, which grew out of British ball and stick games like cricket and rounders, gained in popularity during the Civil War. By the end of the war, baseball was considered America's pastime. It seemed to represent all that was considered good about America: democracy, teamwork, fair play, excellence. It also represented America at its worst: divided, discriminatory, unjust. Page 24. Determined to end institutionalized discrimination in baseball, sports writers such as Wendell Smith of the Pittsburgh Courier, Frank A. Young of the Chicago Defender, Art Cohn from the Oakland Tribune, and Sam Lacey of the Baltimore Afro-American, and Shirley Povich of the Washington Post wrote daily articles on the injustice of segregation within professional sports. They appealed to the baseball commissioner, to the owners of teams, to the ball players themselves, and to the fans who supported the game. The questions these journalists raised went beyond the issue of race and into the economics of the game. They asked, could baseball truly be considered America's pastime when black ball players and white ball players couldn't play on the same field? Could post-World War II teams afford to rebuild and be successful without including the enormous talent pool that existed within the Negro Leagues? Could the business of baseball grow when it was being accused of racism? Could the United States really consider itself a democracy if a portion of its population were denied basic human rights and opportunities simply because the color of their skin? There's a timeline down there from 1845 to 1920. I want you to check that out, okay? You can pause and look at that. Page 26. Now we have another one of the factors here. Ready? With the country delicately balanced toward change and baseball under pressure to set the pace, someone within the executive ranks of baseball had to commit to breaking the color barrier. A couple of baseball owners had tried to be pioneers before 1945, but were unsuccessful. Then, with exquisite timing, Branch Rickey, president and general manager of the Brooklyn Dodgers, stepped forward. He was just the man for the job. Wesley Branch Rickey was born December 20, 1881 in Stockdale, Ohio. He played baseball as a young boy in the Ohio countryside. Rickey attended Ohio Wesleyan University. Summers, he helped him support himself by playing semi-pro baseball. Even as a young man, Branch Rickey had strong values and firm beliefs. For example, while a student at Ohio Wesleyan, he began playing Major League Baseball for the Cincinnati Reds, 1905. He refused to play games on Sundays because it was against his religious principles. Rickey was released from the team for taking this stand. From that point on, he had a clause written into all of his baseball contracts stating that he did not have to report to the ballpark on Sundays. After Rickey graduated from Ohio Wesleyan, he went to law school, worked as an athletic director and baseball coach, and played big league ball for the St. Louis Browns, 1906, and the New York Highlanders, 1907. In his spare time, he lectured against legalizing alcohol. Rickey went on to manage the St. Louis Browns and Cardinals, the Brooklyn Dodgers, and the Pittsburgh Pirates. In 1942, Branch Rickey was named president of the Brooklyn Dodgers. A year later, he went to the board members of the Dodger Club and told them that he wanted to recruit players from the Negro League teams. The board wasn't surprised. Rickey was well known for bold moves. During World War II, he replaced seasoned ball players who were off fighting in Europe with boys as young as 15. In the 1930s, Rickey built baseball's farm system, which today is called the minor leagues. When Rickey first proposed integrated baseball, the commissioner of baseball at the time, Judge Kennesaw Mountain Landis, was firmly against it. Landis died on November 24th, 1944, and the new commissioner, A.B. Happy Chandler, took the opposite position and said, "I don't believe in barring Negroes from baseball just because they're Negroes." Branch Rickey agreed. There were two basic reasons why Branch Rickey wanted to break baseball's color line. First, he deeply believed in equality and thought it was unfair to keep black ball players out of the major leagues. Second, he wanted to build the strongest team that would win games and excite the fans. Rickey knew that the talent pool in the Negro Leagues was too tempting for a smart businessman to ignore. Branch Rickey took a year preparing to bring black ball players into the major leagues. He knew that success depended on finding the man who'd be right on and off the field. Rickey studied the field using scouts to explore the pool of players. There were many Negro League players who were well known and proven professional baseball players. Players such as Satchel Paige, Josh Gibson certainly headed the list provided by Mr. Rickey's scouts. Branch Rickey studied the reports, listened to his scouts, and talked with black sports writers. They universally agreed my father not only had the ability to play on a major league level, but was the right man to pioneer the integration of Major League Baseball. Still, Rickey's decision was not an easy one. So, what was it that really swayed him? What convinced him to take the risk with Jackie Robinson?